This news program is proudly brought to you by Smart Start Breakfast Biscuits and Now Biscuits.
World leaders arrive in Port Moresby. Tertiary students in the country protest. And Prime Minister James Marape sets the agenda for the third FIPIC summit. A very good evening. This is National Emtv News. I'm Godwin Eki. Thank you for joining us. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi touched down at the Jackson's APEC terminal last night to a red carpet welcome. On hand to meet him was Prime Minister James Marape, Deputy Prime Minister John Rosso, among other cabinet members. The highlight of the arrival was the sign of respect bestowed to Modi when Prime Minister Marape knelt to touch his feet.
At about 20 minutes to 10, the Indian plane touched down with its precious cargo. As Prime Minister Narendra Modi prepared to disembark, a 21-gun salute could be heard in the background, heralding the arrival of the dignitary. The red carpet was laid out, and as the Indian leader stepped out, PNG Prime Minister James Marape was there to meet him. And after a warm embrace, Prime Minister Marape bestowed the highest respect when he knelt down to touch the Indian Prime Minister's feet. According to Hindu tradition, when you touch the feet of an elder person, you're in turn blessed with knowledge, intellect, strength and fame. Following the pleasantries, Prime Minister Modi met the PNG welcome delegation before heading out to inspect the Guard of Honour. The Indian Prime Minister Modi was welcomed by the custodians of Emtv. However, local media were unable to capture the footage as foreign Indian officials stopped the local media from capturing the moment. Rocky Iso, National Emtv News.
New Zealand Prime Minister Chris Hipkins arrived in the country to a full military guard of honour, including a 19-gun salute yesterday evening at the APEC International Terminal in Port Moresby. On hand to receive the New Zealand Prime Minister and his delegation was Deputy Prime Minister John Rosso, NCD Governor Powes Pakop, Deputy Governor and Chairman of the Motu Koita Assembly Dadi Toka Jr. and state officials.
We are here at the Jackson Ceremonial Car Park awaiting the arrival of New Zealand Prime Minister Chris Hipkins to the third FIPIC summit. Traditional groups representing all 21 provinces have assembled ready to welcome Prime Minister Hipkins to our country. He is expected to hold bilateral talks with Prime Minister James Marape tomorrow. From the Jackson Ceremonial Car Park, state protocol officers, including the media, were moved to the APEC International Terminal for the arrival of New Zealand's Prime Minister. At about 7:30 p.m., New Zealand's Air Force One touched down at the Jackson's APEC Terminal yesterday evening. Prime Minister Hipkins was met by Deputy Prime Minister John Rosso, state ministers, host governor of NCD and PNG government officials. He was met by PNG Defence Post Commander Major General Mark Goyner and Police Commissioner David Manning before inspecting a full guard of honour. A Motuan traditional welcome was also staged before he was whisked away to his hotel. Prime Minister Hipkins paid a courtesy visit to Governor General Sebob Dadai before visiting the Gordon's Market, which was funded by the New Zealand government at a cost of 15 million kina. After business formalities, Prime Minister Hipkins departs for New Zealand later this evening. Lindy Suharupa, National Emtv News.
Pacific Island leaders arrived in the country yesterday for the third FIPIC summit. Solomon Islands Prime Minister arrived yesterday evening, whilst Nauru, New Caledonia and Vanuatu leaders arrived in the afternoon at the Jackson's ceremonial car park. The FIPIC summit is also being staged at the APEC House in Port Moresby.
Leaders from the wider Pacific community all arrived yesterday for the Forum for India-Pacific Islands Cooperation Summit. At about 6 p.m., Samoan Prime Minister Fiame Naomi Matafa and Vanuatu's Alatoi Ismail Kalsakau arrived. This was followed by the arrival of the President of New Caledonia, His Excellency Louis Mapou, and U.S. Premier Dalton Tagelagi. Other prominent leaders, including neighboring Solomon Islands Prime Minister Manasseh Sogavare, arrived earlier. This FIPIC summit will be an opportunity for smaller island nations in the Pacific region to share their thoughts and experiences on pressing issues that are affecting their communities and people with world superpowers like New Zealand, India, and the US. Bilateral talks and agreements will be made during the course of this summit. A total of 14 Pacific Island countries, including PNG, are participants in this third FIPIC summit, which is jointly hosted by the governments of PNG and India. Lindy Suharupa, National Emtv News.
Prime Minister James Marape met with media late yesterday evening to outline PNG's position going into the meet with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and US Secretary of State Antony Blinken. High on the agenda is climate change and the need to mitigate, especially for our smaller Pacific Island nations, and trade opportunities. Marape also spoke on the Defence Cooperation Programme.
A hectic evening for the Prime Minister James Marape as he met and welcomed Pacific Island leaders at the Hilton Hotel yesterday in Port Moresby before he met with media for a scheduled press conference. The media waited for over an hour before the Prime Minister arrived, flanked by PNG's ambassador to India, Polly Esconi, Minister for Environment and Climate Change, and Lufa MP Simo Kilepa, along with Foreign Affairs Secretary Elias Wayanongu. The Prime Minister apologizing profusely to media for keeping them waiting, before revealing that 7 MOUs will be signed with the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi during the PNG-India bilateral meet.
Our meetings, we expect to deliver about 7 MOUs that are signed. Part of that is linked opening up access towards pharmaceutical access, pharmaceutical product. India is the pharmacy of the world, so to speak. They produce drug that the world is buying from, so we want to go straight and get from government to government level at the source instead of through a contracted supplier.
Prime Minister Marape also clarified issues raised by Australian media recently on the security deal with the US.
The process started in 2015. The exchange, conversations that was running, but in the last 6 months, our team, their team, word by word, it was almost like verbatim, go through every word that was in the text so that our national interest is not compromised. And as I did indicate to you, no immunity given, only 15 years, no laws will be amended. Any operations in country, PNG military will be informed and their approval will be given. And so it's in my view, a tailored agreement that will add value to our defense force.
Marape reiterated that geopolitics aside, the need of strengthening PNG's borders is important. He also thanked Papua New Guineans nationwide for putting local issues aside and putting on a welcome for the visiting leaders. Rocky Iso, National Emtv News.
Prime Minister James Marape has set the tone for the third FIPIC summit during a dinner he hosted in honor of the visiting Pacific Island leaders at the Hilton Hotel yesterday evening. During Marape's main discuss, he called on Pacific Island leaders to be specific in the discussions with the US and India, and he will be taking the lead in issues of climate change, reclamation of land so Pacific Island nations can live on their land without relocation and the cost of rising energy, among other topics.
Pacific Island leaders have arrived in PNG for the one-day meeting, and PNG Small Pacific residents were on show last night from dress to entertainment in a welcome dinner hosted by the country's Prime Minister. In delivering his speech, Prime Minister Marape stated that while there is no prior agenda set for the third FIPIC meeting with India and the US, Pacific Island nations need to be more specific in dialogue with world leaders so the outcomes will be positive.
FIPIC has no fixed agenda. Tonight I'm stimulating agenda on the table. Our conversation, each of us come from small islands, medium-sized islands, big islands like Papua New Guinea, but our challenges are the same. We saw earlier a presentation from IFC. The cost of fuel in small island states is very high. It's about time big carbon footprint holders on the face of planet Earth must commensurate their help to small island communities and nations who are the biggest victim to the climate change issue with right level of interventions, especially in the area of energy, offering lower cost, clean, green energy solutions.
Marape also revealed that PNG will not attend another COP meet.
I made a statement in the presence of French President and Gabonese President. I said, Papua New Guinea will no longer come to COP28. For we have had enough conversations and talk, yet nations like Papua New Guinea and many other developing nations are yet to see fullest fulfillment of commitments to climate mitigation, commitments to the upkeep of our planet. And at this juncture, let me say thank you very much to Australia. There was a 2019 fifth meeting in Tuvalu when they decided to bring home their climate change mitigation funds to Pacific, and instead of keeping it outside.
Prime Minister Marape called on the Pacific Island nations to unite and stand together as the Pacific makes up 1/3 of planet Earth. Together with our rich Pacific Ocean teeming with tuna, the time to speak up is now for future generations. While the welcome reception was successful, the highlight of the evening belonged to the contemporary Samoan traditional dances put on by two Samoan families living in Port Moresby. Rocky Iso, National MTV News.
National MTV News continues after the break with more stories. Stay with us. You're watching National MTV News. As part of the Marape Rosso government to upscale the internal security force of Papua New Guinea in the sector of the PNG Defence Force, the government has taken a bigger approach with the announcement of a signing of a defence cooperation agreement with USA, which is a first of its kind. The defence cooperation agreement between the United States and Papua New Guinea will serve as a fundamental framework where the two countries can enhance security cooperation and further strengthen bilateral relationship, improve the capacity of the PNG Defence Force, and increase stability and security in the region. Prime Minister James Marape signed the Ship Raider Agreement and the Defence Cooperation Agreement with the United States this afternoon in Port Moresby.
Talks on the US-PNG Defense Cooperation Agreement and the Ship Raider Agreement have led to peaceful protests conducted by students from tertiary institutions and concerned Papua New Guineans. Many have raised concerns, asking for an explanation by the Prime Minister, James Marape. Last week, a draft copy of the document has been leaked, stipulating own interpretations by people that stirred debate and led to questions as to whether such an agreement could undermine national security. The Foreign Affairs Secretary, Elias Wohengu, explained yesterday that the widely publicized defense deal maintains the country's sovereignty and is in line with its laws. He made the statement amidst rumors of leaked documents regarding the defense cooperation deal.
That no law of Papua New Guinea will be changed to enable the entry into force of this agreement.
Prime Minister James Marape has confirmed that the Ship Rider Agreement and the Defense Cooperation Agreement with the United States is to be signed. According to U.S. government official website, officials say that Washington is supplying $12.4 million in personal protective equipment to the PNG Defense Force, including ballistic helmets, flags, jackets with armor plates, elbow pads, knee pads, and eye protection to its border patrol and domestically for security operations. The U.S. DCA is timely and essential in boosting the PNG Defense Force capacity and training. Furthermore, knowledge transfer is critical to maintain a robust force to deal with internal safety and border security. The agreement sets to improve in capacities, infrastructure, and personnel of the PNG Defense Force. The U.S. Defense Cooperation Act is done under Section 206 of the Constitution. Visiting Force Act 1975 is 48 years old. Section 117 of the Constitution talks about treaty, but this U.S. DCA is not a treaty, rather an umbrella framework with further agreements to be made going forward. This current agreement has a 15-year clause. It can be made redundant or laid off if the Prime Minister in the next Parliament in 2038 sees that this current agreement doesn't work in the country's favor. The final document in custody of relevant authorities is nothing like the leaked document. The final document has taken all necessary considerations for mutual cooperation and the upholding and respect of PNG sovereignty. It has been accepted by the state solicitors as the final document and does not breach the law, especially the Constitution.
This requires no amendments to our laws, all within existing law we have. And I believe in time Papua New Guinea will see the result of this agreement. This has never been done before. I know the reason why many are hesitant, many are thinking twice. It will not in any way affect our relationship elsewhere, as I did mention earlier, including China.
Grace Papiali, National, Emtv News.
The proposed defense cooperation agreement between PNG and US is set to bring in infrastructure developments to the country, according to Foreign Affairs Secretary Elias Wohengu. He said this in a press conference on Saturday when asked by the media what benefits the agreement will bring to Papua New Guinea.
Secretary Wohengu said whatever that is built on PNG shore by the U.S. will remain PNG's property. He said the agreement will bring in developments. This is the benefit for the agreement. However, this was opposed to by the Catholic Professional Society, stating that DCA does not cater for social and economic impacts for PNG, especially in Manus Province and people of Los Negros Island, the Lombrum Naval Base. Representatives from the civil society said PNG needs trade agreements and not security agreements. According to Dominic Sengi, former senior foreign affairs officer and a member of CPS PNG, he said PNG has already signed 2 articles with the US, which is the US Article Agreement 505 and the Ship Rider Agreement. He said there is no need to sign another agreement. Cynthia Maku, National, Emtv News.
Students at the country's premier education institution, the University of Papua New Guinea, staged a protest march early this morning to express their grievances on the bilateral treaty between PNG and the US. They say Papua New Guinea does not need a security treaty. However, a treaty of development would have been essential at this time. They say Papua New Guinea's sovereignty must be respected.
To drag it into that. I don't want my country to...
These aggrieved students assembled as early as 6 a.m. this morning with their placards and banners with a common message. They do not want any bilateral security ties, especially this pact agreement. Jodal Gemo, a student rep, questioned the motive behind the signing of this treaty.
We've seen this pact since yesterday. We've been reviewing it in the past weekend, and we saw that most of the things are not in favor of our country. And we see that the sovereignty of our nation is being tested, and it has been questioned. Are we really in charge of our own destiny? Is this what our independence is for? Do we have a voice? Because we cannot be undermined by superpowers of this nation using us for any of their geopolitical aspirations within our region.
They claim that Papua New Guineans were not made aware of this treaty beforehand, with no proper consultation and deliberation on the floor of Parliament and agreed upon on both sides of the House.
This security pact is not being circulated to the whole country to be voted for by the people, to be amended under the constitution of this country. This pact was not tabled in the floor of Parliament and be tested by way of debating by the both sides of the House, both government and the opposition. They never tested this, and there's no genuineness in this.
This lot of concerned Papua New Guinean students claim the country needs an agreement that will boost its economy and not a security treaty agreement. Gordon Walimbu, a final year political science student, explains further.
We don't have any enemy that we are going to worry and sign a treaty with any other superpower states that will complicate our foreign policy and our future. We are aware very well that in the international system, when great powers come in, they come in for their own rights, they come in for their own interest. And our interest is not so good. In that article, we have seen that it is all for U.S. favor.
Students from the University of Technology in Lei Morobe Province and students from the Divine Word University also held similar protests today. According to the government of PNG, through its Foreign Affairs Department, this treaty will enable exchange of ideas, trainings and equipment between the two countries, boosting the PNG Defence Force. However, some may ask, does Papua New Guinea really need a security partnership agreement? Lindy Suharupa, National Emtv News.
Meanwhile, spouses of Pacific Island leaders attending the third forum of India-Pacific Island Cooperation meeting visited the National Museum, Unity Mall, and had a boat cruise today. Prime Minister James Marape's wife, Rachel Marape, Fiji Prime Minister's wife, Suluetu Rambuka, Solomon Islands Prime Minister's wife, Emma Sokovare, and Vanuatu Prime Minister's wife, Ellen Kalsakau, were given a tour of the city, especially visiting the National Museum, the Unity Mall, before taking a boat cruise around the Port Moresby harbour. The leaders' spouses concluded their tour on a boat cruise before returning back to their hotel. Mount Hagen City is into its second week of enforcement of the recent launched city authority laws. There had been no more signs of street vending, including sale and consumption of betel nut.
Street pavements are now clean, and people are no longer bumping into street vendors within city limits. Today, Emtv took to the streets of the capital of Western Highlands Province to observe the enforcement of the city laws against littering and street sales, which have been an eyesore in the past. It was also observed that women and children are now feeling free to move around the city as street corners that used to have street vendors and harbour petty thieves are cleared. Police are also being constantly on ground in hotspots like the Highlands bus stop. The general public is being urged to work together against petty criminals and opportunists by utilizing the recently launched toll-free numbers. Meanwhile, for those who chew betel nut, the places to do business are Okapena and Kamnaur markets outside the city. Visitors are advised not to chew betel nut and not to litter as well. Natasha Ovoy, National Emtv News.
You're watching National Emtv News. We'll bring you more stories after the break. Stay with us. You're watching National Emtv News. Moving to overseas news now, and U.S. President Joe Biden has confirmed that the U.S. will train Ukrainian pilots.
Today in Japan, President Zelensky honoured the dead of a war that took place 8 decades ago. The devastation of Hiroshima bringing to mind another war, his war, one that's raging right now across Ukraine.
Photos of ruined Hiroshima remind me of Bakhmut and such other towns. There is absolutely nothing alive there. All the buildings are destroyed.
His task, their task, was to show the world that Western leaders, at least these ones who make up the G7, were still united in support of Ukraine, to signal Moscow that talk of fatigue and distraction was overblown.
Okay, thank you.
To that end, President Biden said the United States had Ukraine's back and promised yet more military support, more ammunition, more training and more armoured vehicles.
We will not waver. Putin will not break our resolve as he thought he could 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago. We're going to continue to provide economic, humanitarian and security assistance to Ukraine so it can stand strong as long as it needs it.
He confirmed the US would help Ukrainian pilots train on Western F-16 fighter jets like these, jets designed not only to give Ukraine greater control of the skies, but also, again, to demonstrate Western resolve.
Russia claims it has captured the Ukrainian city of Bakhmut.
The defense of Bakhmut by Ukrainian forces, and conversely for Russia, the goal of capturing it has become something that's kind of dominated both Ukrainian and Russian sort of perceptions about how the war is going. For Russia's part, it desperately needs some kind of sort of sense of a victory to be able to say that this so-called special military operation is having any effect whatsoever. So the fact that it's now claiming victory in Bakhmut is probably fairly accurate, that it controls the vast majority of what's left of the town, is an attempt, I think, to try and show that the operation is having some kind of success. Whereas from the Ukrainian perspective, I think the view is, well, it was necessary to try and defend Bakhmut as long as possible so that it would tie up a large number of Russian forces and inflict really quite significant casualties on them.
Results for the historic national election in Timor-Leste are being tallied and counted.
It's still a little too early to tell who will win yesterday's vote, but opposition party CNRT is trending ahead. It's led by resistance-era hero Xanana Gusmao, who says this election could be his last. Having spent the last 4 years in opposition, he'll have to defeat Marie Alkatiri's Fretilin party to win. Fretilin has about a quarter of votes so far, but has already said it will form a coalition with 2 minor parties, which could give it an advantage. The election comes at a crucial time for Timor-Leste, with declining oil and gas revenue putting the nation's economy at risk of a crisis. Timor-Leste is also seeking to join ASEAN, with hopes that could happen as soon as September. Vote counting has resumed this morning, with results expected later today.
Sustainable fuels could help Australia achieve zero net targets.
So it could be the tops and trash from the sugarcane industry, it could be used cooking oil, it could be organics that are being diverted from landfill. There are a range of feedstocks, but imagine anything that is organic that is currently not having a higher value purpose. If we look at other countries such as the US, UK, Europe, they are moving incredibly quickly in developing their renewable fuel sectors, and billions of dollars of investment is taking place. The last thing that we would like to see is Australia being an exporter of our feedstocks, so our used cooking oil as an example. Our export of that into the US has gone up by 33,000% in the last 2 years, and that is to produce renewable fuels. So what we need to do in Australia is we need to harness the opportunity. We need to be developing these projects domestically. So we're really calling on the government to put some policies in place in Australia that will really incentivise that feedstock being produced domestically and being able to be available domestically. To the tune of an additional 10 billion GDP per annum and 26,000 jobs could be delivered through us creating this new industry.
Investigations are underway after the fatal shooting of a man in Brisbane.
Body-worn cameras worn by 6 police officers will form part of the investigation into how a 29-year-old First Nations man was shot and killed by police in Brisbane yesterday. It all happened yesterday afternoon. Police were called to this scene at Days Road in the Grange in Brisbane's inner north after reports that a man had stabbed his father. When police arrived, they found a 53-year-old man with a deep laceration stab wound to his hand. It's then alleged that a 29-year-old First Nations man, he lunged at police with a knife, and one of the police officers shot this man 3 times, killing him, and he died here at the scene.
That ends the news segment. We'll bring you sports stories after the break. Stay with us.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. The Croton Hela Wigmen have outplayed the Guest Resources Central Dabaris yesterday afternoon in the Port Moresby's double-header. Wigmen proved to be the dominant side following the final hooter, leading with 24 points to 20 at full-time. This now places Wigmen on the 4th spot in Pool B of the National Rugby League competition.
Costumed in navy and sky blue jerseys, both sides ran out of their dressing rooms into the Santos National Football Stadium with extreme confidence to show no mercy to each other in the main tussle of the day. The kickoff was done by the Dabaris onto the Wigmen outfit at the western end of the playing field. The game was evenly contested until the Wigmen scored the icebreaker try just 5 minutes in. Dabaris' attempt to retaliate, but the Wigmen side were too good when they succeeded another try 4 minutes later. The Wigmen edge stood firm with a clear dominance in the opening half through to the second half, claiming the win with 24 points as the Dabaris fell short by 4 points. With this win, the Wigmen are now seated below the Dabaris on the 4th position in Pool B of the competition. Lisa Puni, Trukai Sports.
Meantime, as round 6 went to a showdown over the weekend, the EPG Engamioks are currently maintaining their top spot in the competition with 12 points in Pool A. The NCDC Port Moresby Vipers are leading Pool B in round 6.
Following round 5 playoffs where the EPG Engamioks ousted the PRK Mendi Muruks from the top spot in Pool A, they continue to maintain their post after defeating Bintango Goroka yesterday in their second away match of the season. Another franchise that has remained undefeated in this year's competition is the Lacenecks Tigers, who are seated just beneath the Mioks, followed by the PRK Mendi Muruks with 8 points, the Bintango Goroka with 5 points, the Wampga Hagen Eagles with 2 points, and to wrap up Pool A, seated at the 6th spot, is the West New Britain government-backed Kimber Carters. In Pool B, the Money Plus NCDC Port Moresby Vipers are leading the pool by 8 points following their win against the EMK Civic Pride 16 points to 14 over the weekend. Running second is ENB Agmark Rabaul also with 8 points, followed by Gas Resources-backed Central Dabaris with 6 points. On the fourth place is the defending premiers, the Croton Hella Wigmen, with 5 points. And on the fifth and sixth position is the EMK Civic Pride and the PRK Gulf ISO, sharing 3 points in Pool B. Lisa Punichukai Sports.
In football, following their first appearance in the Oceania Football Confederation in Men's Champions League in Vanuatu, the Hekari United Football Club represented Papua New Guinea very well. However, their tournament has reached its end after they lost to Tahitian Association Sportive Pirae on Saturday. The match was closely contested, which saw both sides heading into the dressing room in the opening break with a 1-1 first finish at halftime. But it was the AS Pirae that proved too strong, coming out as victors, scoring another goal in the second half. With this loss, Hekari United FC bows out of the competition as AS Pirae advances onto the semi-final playoff, where they will play Suva this Wednesday. Trukai Sports continues after the break. Stay with us.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports. In overseas sports now, Newcastle Knights superstar Kaylin Ponga has been dropped from the Queensland Maroon squad because of concussion concerns.
But he is the major headline omitted from the squad by Billy Slater after he was so dominated last year. He's been replaced in the side by a Broncos superstar in Reece Clark. He will start as fullback, rather Reece Walsh. Now, he's otherwise known as Reece Lightning. The big headline is Nico Hines is in. Now, not only were we pretty sure he'd be selected, but he was actually spotted in Coogee going for a swim this morning. So once we saw he was in the team hotel area out on the beach for the perfect start to the day, you could say, we knew he would be in the squad. Now, he's not the only debutant for the Blues. Also coming in, Tavita Pangai Jr. and Hudson Young will also debut.
Max King has led the St Kilda side to a 12-point win over the GWS Giants.
It was his long-awaited return from a shoulder injury. Just the sight of him on the park would have made Saints fans happy. But he went on to kick 4 goals to seal the win at Giants Stadium. The victory lifts St Kilda to 5th on the AFL ladder. Here's what he had to say after that win.
Sort of forget what it's like to take a mark and kick a goal. So, I'm just really happy to be out here and can't thank the rehab guys at the club enough for all the work they put in. So, yeah, really happy.
That ends Trukai Sports. The Money Plus weather report is next. Stay with us.
Trukai Sports. Trukai Sports.
This weather update is proudly brought to you by Money Plus. With you always.
Weather forecast for the next 24 hours. Southern region, all centers cloudy periods with possible evening showers. In the Momase region, Lae, Medang, Buick and Vanimo cloudy periods with possible brief showers and thunderstorm. In the New Guinea Islands region, Lorengau and Kavieng cloudy periods with few showers and possible thunderstorm. Kokopo, Rabaul, Kimbe and Buka rain showers and possible thunderstorm. In the Highlands region, Mount Hagen cloudy periods with few showers and possible thunderstorm. Goroka and Kundiawa, Mendi and Wabeg mostly cloudy with few showers.
The weather update was proudly brought to you by MoneyPlus, with you always.
And before we go, the Defense Cooperation Agreement and Ship Rider Agreement were signed this afternoon by the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and PNG's Minister for Defense Win Bakri Daki.
According to Prime Minister James Marape, this will deepen U.S. relations with PNG. He said this will also bring economic benefits to the country and enhance security cooperation with no loss of the country being compromised.
We do acknowledge you and your entire entourage.
Secretary Blinken said this agreement will pave way for U.S. to work closely with PNG in security, economic and maritime developments. Both parties assured the country that after the signing, the contents of the agreement will be transparently disclosed to the public. Lisa Puni, National Emtv News.
And that wraps up the news, sports and weather for Monday, the 22nd of May, 2023. From the entire news team, pleasant viewing. Bye for now.
This news program was proudly brought to you by Smart Start Breakfast Biscuits and Gold Nuggets.